I've never found a love like this. There it is. I've never found a love like this.
Good evening and welcome to the preview for West Ham United versus Gent. I am home this time, which means that we are going to make, for the third or fourth time, a concerted effort to try and get this right and also make it look a little bit more professional. So tonight I am joined by Clive, who I have not done a show with yet before. But Clive, how are you doing, my friend?
Yeah, not too bad. Busy day, but yeah, we eventually got here, and now I can start to get excited for tomorrow night, I think.
We can indeed. We do, thankfully, this time actually have a little bit more to talk about with Gent, because before, myself and Lucas at the time had absolutely no idea who Gent were, how they played, or anything like that. But let's just jump into it straight away.
Yeah.
How impressed were you with Gent the other night? Obviously, first time seeing them yourself, unless you have a hard on for watching teams in Belgium. I don't know. But how impressed were you with Gent the other night?
I think there's always a couple of things, and I'm always worried about, like, when we go to other countries and face certain teams, like whether the fields are going to be as good, especially when it's not like a top 5 league. So I always think that sort of plays a part. I always think as well, like, the analysis that the team have to do on certain teams, like, do we have enough to know about them? And I think sometimes that shows. Obviously, for the tie to be where it is at the moment, and it wasn't ideal considering our league position, but looking at the fact that we've now got home advantage, I'd like to think we could blow them away. I think we were a little bit subpar in that game. I think we maybe made them look a little bit better than they were, to be honest. But that's just my opinion on that. I just don't think we had much flair in that game, to be fair. But yeah, hopefully this time round we can hopefully blow them away and sort of ease our pressure a bit.
Yeah. In terms of, like, actual players though themselves, was there anybody that you thought were a little bit more, I guess, they lived up to the hype with obviously their striker that everybody seems to be raving about at the moment? Were you impressed with him? How did you sort of see, like, what threats did you see from their team, you know, almost that just stood out to you?
Yeah, I think, look, like you say, their striker, I always forget his blooming name, but that's the only problem. I literally stuck my names here. But yeah, like, I think we're such a weird team, aren't we? So, like, of course, when it comes to a striking prowess, we look at a point where it's like, oh, should we be that concerned? And then knowing our defence and knowing our luck as well, it's one of them where you give them one sniff at goal and you just know they're going to do something. I think we can't be too respectful of their team. Like, we have to go in and sort of assert the dominance and show, you know, like, who's boss in the next game, for instance. Because I think in the first leg, every time they had a sniff at goal, you just had a feeling something was going to happen. I know we were 1-0 up, and I just had a weird feeling at the time, being like, oh, if they have one opportunity, just something, a little sniff, they're going to end up scoring. And lo and behold, of course, that's exactly what happened. And it's one of those, because throughout their campaign, they've had, they had Orban. I think that's the striker we're on about. That's the one. You know, throughout the whole season, well, in the Europa League, Europa Conference rather, he's been scoring goals. He did it against Karabag. He's done it against Istanbul. Done it, you know, multiple times. So he's clearly got a good eye on goal, for instance, for that. But I think we've got to be more solid in terms of defending. And I'm hoping that, you know, the weekend's performance sort of may ease that pressure a bit.
Yeah, obviously we'll get on to us and the performance the other day. Yes, Gift Orban. I had to look it up as well. I've just got the list of their players on the screen.
Exactly what I've done.
Just to see. Hugo Kuipers, obviously, as well, was their main threat. He was the one who ended up actually taking quite a nice finish for them. Were you as surprised as I was? Because I was at Brent Cross for the day with, obviously, Rebecca and her family and stuff. And I thought we would be back for the match, but we weren't. There's no dig against you, Rebecca. But I thought we'd be back for the match. So I did watch some of it, or most of it, on my phone in the car on the way back. But I was quite shocked from the performance that I actually saw. I did say in the preview last week that we did with Lucas before the game, I did think that they were sort of a team that had nothing to lose. And I guess they kind of almost showed that. The first 10, 15 minutes, they allowed us to sort of come onto them and have the ball, and we were pressuring quite well. Again, maybe necessarily didn't take our chances, that there was. But then they just played like a team without fear. They were a team clearly that have got to this round of the competition and knocked out a couple of decent teams in the knockout rounds as well. And they actually started to show that. And I think the stats towards the end of that game was really quite alarming. I thought it would be close. I did predict a 2-2 draw, but I didn't think that they would dominate us in the way that they did, especially towards the end of that first half and in the second half. I mean, did you see that coming at all? Because I certainly
no. I mean, if you look at where Gent stand in the Belgium league, they're not they're not exactly like runaway sort of a concern. Like if you look at their league form, for instance, like I think they've almost got 10 losses this season or thereabouts. They're in the top 4 if I'm not mistaken, but only on goal difference. But when you look at like the league as a whole, they're not even close to the top end of the table. I think they're quite a distance off. Yeah. Obviously, I don't necessarily think it matters. I think they have like some sort of like qualification playoff situation in the Belgium league. But I didn't expect. I thought to myself, it'll be fine. Maybe it'll be a close-ish game because it's at home for them. But I think because we managed to dispatch Anderlecht earlier in the season in the group stage, I was like, it'll be fine. But to be honest, out of the two teams, Gent looked a lot better than Anderlecht did from what I remember.
Which is mad because of how well Anderlecht are currently doing in their quarterfinal leg as well.
Yes, and that's the thing. So it was such a strange one when watching it, but I have to be honest, I don't think we turned up. No. I don't know what it was, but like when I compare the performances that we've had, like say a few days after or even before that game, I was like, we should turn up for this one. It'll be fine. But we didn't look like we got going.
No.
In that game, to be honest.
I was going to say, no, but I was going to say, but that I think is the perfect thing almost is what we said last week was, and the importance of it, I think showed last season, as I said again in a preview, was having that second leg at home. And yes, maybe on paper, looking at us and the two teams, we should have probably dispatched Gent with a little more ease than what we did. But as long as you keep the tie close, going into that second leg playing at home is absolutely massive. And I think that hopefully should give us the edge. But as somebody said here earlier in the comments, I don't think the home crowd would do too much. There's only still around 20k tickets left. I don't know. I haven't looked. I haven't seen. I wouldn't expect that to be the case. Would you think it probably should be rocking tomorrow night? I know the fact that it's a European quarter-final, I mean, we sold out our allocation this week as well for the FA Youth Cup final. I can't imagine us not having a close to full house and it being quite loud there tomorrow, surely.
Yeah, I think, looking at the aspect, I mean, anything can happen, right? And the fact that this could be potentially, if we were to be knocked out, God forbid that were to happen, but if it could, it could literally happen, I think people would want to be a part of the whole European experience. For me, like, for instance, I'm definitely going to the game tomorrow night. I think it's important that, I know it's a Thursday late kickoff and whatnot, but, we managed to make it work last season. Yeah, all right, we're not facing teams like Lyon or Sevilla, but, there's still a magnitude of importance to this. We win this competition, we are in the Europa League next season. It's as simple as that. And as a fan base, I think we just got to go and support a team where it needs to be. But, I mean, there was a huge way support, more than the allocation for the Gent fixture. So I'd like to think, if we can maximise, if not more, the away support, I'm sure we'll fill in the home support a lot more than anticipated. I think the thing is, there's probably a lot of people that are trying to like resell their tickets and stuff.
Yeah,
they'll probably still go to the game. So I don't think it'll matter too much. I think it should be absolutely fine. I think we just got to be very mindful of the striking prowesses of Gent, because I mean, even looking at Orban's stats, like
it's not just him; it's that Kuipers that for me as well. Yeah. Especially how well he took that goal and how many he seems to have scored this season as well. I mean,
Well,
they are a
exactly.
threat. And I was going to mention a couple of players here before we move on to our sort of stuff. I was quite worried a little bit about Hong and the pace that he had, and also Coombs seemed to run the midfield really well. You know, they do clearly have ways of getting past us, and it seemed that mainly, especially in those sort of after the first 15 minutes we had, where we were seeming to dominate the ball and the possession stuff, that quickly changed around when that Orban was put through over the top a couple of times. Yes, he was offside a couple of times, but all of a sudden we were a little bit worried about that pace. And we started to drop back a little bit, and that's where their midfield seemed to almost take control of the game, which was almost, I guess, to all of us a little bit surprising that it had done a 180 like that. But yeah, it's not just Orban. Yes, he is the main threat, but also they proved that there's a lot of other players there that are quite capable too.
Well, yeah, I mean, Orban's only 20, and then if you look at Kuipers, I mean, he's 26. He's scored the most goals for Gent this season as well. I mean, he's got, I think, 20 goals this season across all competitions, that is. So he's got 6 more than Orban does this season, if I'm not mistaken. But I think if you look at their wingers, the way they play, I think just their attacking pace, like depending on who we put in our back line for tomorrow night, you know, there will be some concerns if we can't sort of cope with the pace.
Yeah. All right, listen, enough of Gent and them. Let's move on to us. Current form. I say current form, even though we were, I guess, current form probably still includes the Newcastle game the other week and also last week's Gent game. So maybe less of current form, more of the performance against Arsenal at the weekend for us. Did that fill you with as much confidence as it did me? Because I saw a fight and spirit in that team at the weekend that I have not seen for probably the best part of 7, 8, 9 months, somewhere towards the back end of last season. I think that last time I saw a fight like that was probably Sevilla at home. And I guess where you had to dig deep. I'm not mentioning the Lyon game. Obviously, Lyon game sort of turned out a little bit different, but I haven't seen a team dig in, have to come from down a goal almost or a couple of goals and fight back in the manner that they did. Because at 2-0, I was ready to turn the game off, you know? And on all of a sudden, it maybe not have been the prettiest football in the world, but against the top side, we've shown sort of reminiscent of what we did last year, which was just clawing our way back into the game and maybe should have, towards the end of it, won it as well.
Yeah, I think I had some confidence from it. Again, like you point out, the fight that we had, the spirit of the team. But I also do have concerns from that game. I mean, the first goal from Arsenal was just pure class. But the second goal was a lapse of judgment from our team.
Yeah.
And that's my worry is, you know, I mean, I look back at the Frankfurt game last season, right? We went a goal down in 45, 50 seconds.
Yeah.
And the team gets concerned or worried. And all it takes is one slip up early in the game. And that could easily happen. And that's where I do have concerns because it took us a moment to just get back in that game. And it took us a solid 30 minutes before we actually looked like we were bringing something into the game. So from that aspect, I do have a few concerns. But in terms of the spirit and the fight of the team, if we were to go behind, I believe in the team to sort of come back. And looking at, I mean, the last 3 games, we are technically undefeated. I mean, across both European and league competitions, we beat Fulham 1-0.
Yeah.
We then drew to Gent, and then we've drawn with Arsenal. So we're in a good stead, so to speak, with that in terms of most recent form.
Yeah.
And I think our pressures in the league may have subsided a tiny bit, which may help in terms of the sort of awareness of the players, perhaps, for this game, which I think might be very important.
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit less stressed out with the league as I was a few weeks ago. I think all of us a few weeks ago were really sort of panicking. But I also think at the same time, you know, picking up, even though it's a point, it can't be laughed at because these, you know, are games we didn't expect to get anything from. And if we can show the fight that we did the other day, like you said, it makes these midweek games, you know, especially in the Conference League, you know, we can look at them a little bit differently and say, maybe we can start to play a few of these different players instead of maybe having to rest, etc. But yeah, I think in terms of actual overall fight in the Premier League, I think the last 2 weekends, obviously, I know there was a big deal about the old guard against Fulham being, you know, the reason that we were so, you know, almost stout in our defence against Fulham.
Yeah.
And then again the other day, was there any players that impressed you as much as, let's say, for instance, Jarrod Bowen the other day I thought was exceptional, and then Lucas Paqueta when he came on was brilliant. Yes, we're not going to go over the goals and everything because those first 2 goals were literal playground stuff, and Arsenal made it look incredibly easy. But were there any players that really stood out to you? You thought, do you know what? I can see why we paid A, 50 million for you, and B, Jarrod Bowen hitting some sort of form that he did last year. And even Ben Rama at times, he was really terrorising. And Antonio as well, especially, was terrorising their centre-backs too. Was there anybody that you were impressed with the other day that you think needs to start on Thursday night?
Yeah, I think Soufal, for one, he had a good game on the weekend. So I think Soufal is definitely, for me, a starter. I think, obviously, we rested a couple of players for the first leg. I'm assuming Moyes' game plan was to then, utilise them for the Sunday game against Arsenal, even though that was a bit of a, riskier move because perhaps the fan base wouldn't have expected or anticipated for us to gain a point out of that. But for him, Paqueta didn't start in the first leg. Definitely think he needs to start on this. I think we need to go all guns blazing on this one because I think the sooner we can get a couple of goals and sort of push the game into our advantage, perhaps then we can sub some of these players. I'd anticipate that Agued's probably not going to start because I have seen he's returned to training today, but he's still got the heel injury, and I think it's just not worth risking.
Yeah.
Especially when we're still in a bit of a league situation that we're in. But I think on the Sunday night, Soufal looked great. Sunday afternoon, rather. Soufal looked great. Paqueta looked, we're finally starting to see some of the flair and the movements that he can do. I think Antonio definitely showed why he should be perhaps starting the next few games as well. It's clear that Danny Ings has struggled with the sole striker role that he's been given in this. He needs a backup man. And we can't risk playing 2 strikers at once because our third striker, Skamaka, is injured and he's just had surgery. So, I think utilising Antonio for this will be very important. I think we'll have the pace and the sort of press that is required for this game.
Yeah. Moving on to the starting 11 in just a second. But obviously, if you are new around here, don't forget, do drop a like on the video, subscribe. Become a member, all that good stuff as well. I do see the chat and some things, and I will bring up certain comments as we sort of get to them. But obviously, leading perfectly on to the starting 11. Now, I'll go first. I'll go very quickly, and then I'll give Clive a second to have a little think about who he wants to be starting tomorrow. But completely agree with you. I think Soufal for me is a must. I can't stress enough how badly I do not want to see Ben Johnson play anymore for us, which really angers me, upsets me. I don't really know the words to describe how he seems to have declined over the last few years, or even how rapid it's been over the last few months. We went from this kid we got rid of Jeremy Ngakia and we bring him in, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, this guy will be here for the next few years and stuff. But the last few performances, I don't know whether it's a lack of confidence or a lack of belief or what, or just his footballing ability at the moment is that of a League One Championship standard. These are schoolboy things, and I know he's still young, but he needs to be careful is all I would say. But yes, I think Areola for me, Soufal, probably again Zuma and Tilo Kehrer. It would be another one I ask you about in a second because he's another one that seems to blow incredibly hot and cold. I think Emerson, again, even though I thought Cresswell did really well against Arsenal at times, I still am yet to figure out what Souček actually contributes to the team in a full 90 minutes. So I would like to see Downs and Rice play together. And the thing for me, I think I'd like to see Paqueta through the middle. I think he's so good offensively, and the balls that he finds and the things that he's willing to try. Yes, it nearly came unstuck against Arsenal because I know he tried to play one through ball and we were hitting the counter-attack. But you can see his footballing brain is far superior to maybe somebody else that wants to play in that position. He will look to find that pass, which is why I would have a bit of pace. And I would have Cornet. I would definitely have Antonio. I don't think we can afford to have Danny Ings play through the middle again, just to see, even though he scored last week, he really seems to struggle in this team as the lone striker, and then Jarrod Bowen rounding off in my 11. I know you are a stout defender in the short time I've known you of Thomas Souček, I believe, but does he make your starting 11? Who are you going as a little bit differently to me? And obviously, if you are in the chat at the moment, drop it down below and tell us who you want to see start.
So I think for me, Areola again, although I do have a fear that if we do go to penalties that we might need Fabianski for that one because, I like Areola, but penalty-wise, I don't know if I like him. So that one's a bit of a tough one for me. Right back, definitely Supal. I want to see 4 at the back. I swear to God, if I see 5, I will cry. I think my difference is, as much as I do think Kehrer had a really good game against Arsenal, I think I would like to see Ogbonna and Zuma as our centre backs for this game. Just having that sort of experience at the back perhaps can quieten out Gent a little bit, and not only just that, but I'm also thinking from the aspect of utilising, not panicking and sort of just passing the ball with that little bit less pressure, knowing that you've got an experienced set of centre backs at the back. Left back for me, Emerson as well, and then for me it'd be Rice and Souček. And the reason I say Souček is second half against
That was a great shout. Sorry to stop you in your tracks. Ogbonna is suspended. I completely forgot about that. So Zuma and Kehrer will probably be the centre back duo.
Zuma and
Thank
Kehrer,
you, Steve, and also Ben for pointing that out. He did get a yellow card.
I forgot. Yes, he did. Yes. So change that. Kehrer. I love Kehrer. I was always going to mention.
Yeah,
Kehrer.
always.
I was just seeing if you guys were awake. Come on. So Kehrer, as I say, great player. But no, I think Souček and Rice for DMs. I think Souček's second half against the Arsenal was what we've been waiting to see for a few months. I think there has been a lack of confidence.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm just in my head. I'm hearing Mitch. He's so ingrained in my brain now about his just complete detest for the man that I loved Souček. A part of me still does. I think he's a fantastic guy and the rest of it. But does it not bother you that sometimes when he does play, maybe we don't? I don't think we're as quick in possession as when Souček plays, and I think at times at the moment for us it hinders us slightly. And I think when you as a professional footballer are playing over 60, 70 minutes in a game, but you're 9 or 10 passes like he has in the last few weeks, at least for me with Downs, and the fact that he did the pre-match press conference today makes me believe that he is starting because he was up there with David Moyes. But I just think he offers a little bit more in terms of coming to the ball, wanting the ball, only as well because, yes, Souček has that goal threat, but we haven't seen that in, 6-7 months was his last goal? So...
Yeah, I think, obviously, I think the goal threat's gone in part because, obviously, they've changed the sort of formation, the way they want to keep 2 DMs back and not have that sort of attacking prowess from either him or Rice. Because if you remember at the beginning half of the season, Rice was attacking, Souček stayed back, and Souček didn't look comfortable with that at all. And then they started to change it where Souček was coming forward and Rice was staying back. And Souček had a few opportunities, a few chances, so to speak. But I think, so it's a tough one. I think if you want to go from an aerial presence, I think Souček does offer more. But do I see us using an aerial presence? It depends if we're going to be utilising the cross, the corners. It really depends on that sort of game. I think I can see why everyone wants to play Downs, but my only aspect is, and everyone always says, obviously, Ben Rama is well protected by the fan base, right? And I've just got one of them where it's like Downs is well protected from the fan base because, well, he's a West Ham fan, I think, I can't remember which game it was. It might have been just a couple of weeks back, but, he had a subpar performance.
Yes.
And
I think it was Newcastle, wasn't it, when he came on? He lost the ball a few times. Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, I don't think necessarily it's the inexperience, so to speak. It's probably just the lack of game time, if anything. So I've got no issue with him, but it was very underplayed by the fan base. Like,
Yeah.
Downs can't really do much wrong. And I think how I see it is, Souček has struggled, admittedly. I've not said or shied away from when he's played shit or his passing's been shit.
Yeah.
And ultimately, in the first half against Arsenal, he had 2 touches, 2 successful passes with the ball. But in the second half, he had a little bit more of the ball, but it was the interceptions, it was the tackling, there was more presence on him. And if you looked down the right side where you had Soufal, Souček, and Bowen,
Yeah.
they looked pretty good in terms of the defensive return, in terms of regaining possession. And it was something we hadn't seen with Souček, I would say, for at least 3 or 4 months. And I think now he's had that sort of one game where he's been praised, no doubt, behind the scenes and whatnot. I think it's important to keep his confidence up. We know he's a confidence player. It's the same with Soufal as well.
Yeah.
They need the confidence and they don't really take the abuse very well.
Yeah.
And some players are just like that. And unfortunately, it's both our Czechoslovakian players. But it's perhaps something that is a Slavia Prague thing. I don't know. It just seems to be ingrained with both of those players. But I think once his confidence is high, I think this is why it's important to keep him in this game. At the same time, do you want to potentially rest him against Bournemouth? Maybe.
Don't talk about that just yet. Give me your 3 attackers before you start encroaching on my next.
So Ben Rama down the left, obviously Bowen on the right, Antonio to start up top for me. Ings has not done enough to suggest otherwise.
If you start putting your score predictions down in the chat as well before we get onto that in a second, I will throw one curveball at you. I've left this comment up from Jay Woods simply because, not because he can't spell centre, but because I think what we'll see from David Moyes is, and actually I'm not too against it, is Paqueta and Rice centrally, and Lanzini may be playing as the further forward one. Manuel Lanzini loves this competition, supposedly, or he loves playing Europe for us, and it's the only time he actually seems to get any game time. So I am expecting to see the likes of Lanzini and maybe Fornals. I'm not saying our predictions are going to be bang on, but it wouldn't shock me if we saw a midfield 2 of Paqueta and Rice. And
I don't like Paqueta in. Well. I don't.
You don't like him, no?
No, I don't like him in DM. I like him in centre mid / sort of more that attacking prowess from him. I think it allows him to flow with the ball a lot more. Being in centre allows him to have more time, more preparation, more space to find those magic moments that he seems to find that not many other players can find, especially on our team.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, in part, he panicked at the early part of the season, why he kept getting tackled off the ball. I don't think he's more of a DM player. I really don't. I think he needs to be that sort of really dead centre mid and find those through balls. I think he likes to dictate the play, and he'll draw a lot of fouls. And I think he's not going to draw fouls by being a DM. He'll draw fouls by being in that centre.
Yeah, I think for me, his best performances in a West Ham shirt have come since the World Cup, playing as an 8. And I think for me, I know Alfie of WestHamOnline used to say this to me at the time, which was, he can do that for Brazil because he can play as a 10 and as a, this floating 10 because of all the players he's got around him. And obviously it's true. But I think David Moyes has, again, it's the second time I'm going to use this word in this live stream, but he has such a hard on for Manuel Lanzini playing in this competition that I doubt he will drop him for this game. So I think Paqueta maybe is the further forward midfielder. And he has played Lanzini as the central midfielder before. But the thing is, when on paper, that 3, even if it was that 3 to play in midfield, should still dominate against a sort of a lowly-ish, say, in terms of stature, Gent team. But that will be neither here nor there when we find out who plays tomorrow. But quickly, predictions before we get on to the final question after this. I have seen a few people in the chat already. They're going by 3-0. Steve saying 3-0. Ben also saying 3-1 to West Ham. Can you see it being that wide? Are you that hopeful, or you still think it will be a tight game as the first leg?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a tight game. I do see them scoring because both their strikers have got such confidence. The amount of goals they've scored this season. Personally, for me, I think it will be a 2-1 win. I think obviously we've got home advantage. We haven't played that badly at home. If you look at just like league performance, for instance, like if I look at league versus like away, I guess perhaps that also did affect us against when we went away at Gent, because I mean we've lost 9 games away from home just in the Premier League, but we've only lost. I mean we've lost as many as we've won at home. So we've won 6, lost 6, but away from home we've only won 2.
I mean, that in itself is quite a scary stat, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really bad stat. I mean, our Fulham victory away from home was only our second away win of the season in terms of the Premier League. I mean, obviously, yes, we did okay. Well, I say we did okay. We did good in the group stages. I mean, we won all our away fixtures. But if you actually look at our away fixtures, with the exception of FCSB, we did make work difficult for ourselves. I mean, you look at the Silkeborg game. The Silkeborg game was close. That was a 3-2 win. Anderlecht away was 1-0, but then at home it was 2-1. And obviously Silkeborg at home was just a 1-0, and FCSB was 3-0 away. But
yeah,
I think we do like to make the work harder for ourselves away from home, and I think home advantage will be key for us. I think 2-1 is more realistic from our lads.
Listen, Ben, don't worry. You're a Gent fan. I'm not expecting you to come in here and say that you're going to, walk over, have your tummy tickled by us. It's a massive game for you guys as well. I don't think you've actually been to a European semi-final before. So you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong. But it's massive for you guys as well. And listen, you're a very good team. You've got a lot of good youth, as we've said. If you look back at the start of the preview, we did not disrespect you in any way. We were quite complimentary of you, actually. And I think, saying that, I, as a West Ham fan, do think we will have too much for you tomorrow, but I don't think it will be as wide as some of the people saying here.
No.
2-1 West Ham, I think, is a little bit more realistic. 1-1 draw, obviously, that means we go to extra time, Snazzy. So whatever your prediction is in extra time, let me know. But yeah, I'm going to side with Clive, but I'm going to say extra time. I think it will be 1-1. I think it will be close throughout again. Again, they come into this with absolutely nothing to lose. I do think, and again, my final question is that Bournemouth game will be on the back of David Moyes' mind. And I just hope that we do have enough. The crowd will be there to be, pushing us through. But again, there was nothing that I saw from Gent last week that tells me that this is going to be an easy fixture. I don't think it will be at all. I think they'll be right up for it again. Maybe they're not going to win the league this year, but they also, when looking at the draw, are in the same shoes as us, which is they have the easier path to the final if they want it as well, and potentially a semi-final draw against Anderlecht, which would be an absolutely huge game for them too. So I think it will be close. I think Moyes has got to get his team selection right. I think he has to get the formation right. I don't think we can be negative at home. We can't look to be the team that sits on the back foot and plays the counter-attack against his team. I know that's what he will end up likely want to do, but I think in a game like this, it will be incredibly negative to do so. But yeah, I'm going to opt with you. I'm going to say 2-1. Give me your goal predictions. Who's scoring tomorrow?
Ooh, I'm going to say Antonio. I feel like he deserved a goal against Arsenal, so I'm going to give him his goal in this game. And I'm going to say Paqueta as well. I'm
literally stolen both of my choices.
Yeah, I was really thinking about it. I'm like, it depends if Paqueta starts, because like as you pointed out with Lanzini and whatnot, I'm very much like, oh, is he going to start? Is it going to be, is it going to be one of those where he's not, and then you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
it's a difficult one.
But thanks to James, I do have this to hand in the banner section here. The date included as well, so we'll thank James for that. But the final question of the night, how much of the weekend's game against Bournemouth has to play into tomorrow night's decision-making in terms of team selection, how we go about it? Because I think, Jesus Christ, because James has got all these other fixtures listed down here afterwards. This game, I think, is the most important for me. simply because I think if we can somehow go to Bournemouth and beat them, a place where we've not enjoyed a lot of success before, I'm gonna we'll touch wood, and I will touch wood. I think if we win this match, I think we stay up, and I think it's such a crucial game that it's why I guess we can't risk one of Ings or Antonio or play them together, because this is such a massive game at the weekend. What are your thoughts on that? Do you take that into consideration as per tomorrow night, or is it just let's fully attack this one and then some of those players will fully attack against Bournemouth again on the weekend?
I think, it's a difficult one. I think we've bridged enough gap, and I think you're starting to see the relegation zone sort of. You're seeing which teams look like they're going to be stuck in there, and it's done. And what I mean by that is Southampton look like they're gone. I would even go as potentially as far to say as it's unlikely for both Leicester and Forest to get out. One of them's going down. And I think going by the performance of Leeds United against Liverpool,
you can't keep conceding 6 goals every week.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that would suggest that some of the other teams' forms have declined, and some of the teams have got easier fixtures. And looking at our fixture list, I mean, we've got Bournemouth, and then straight after we've got Liverpool. Liverpool blow hot and cold, so you've got to hope we get them on a good day. And then we've got Palace, and Roy Hodgson's 3 for 3 at the moment. So Palace doesn't look as enticing as it did a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
So it is a tough one, but I genuinely think going away with a draw is not a bad thing. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think Bournemouth have got a lot of confidence when they're at home. They just look that little bit better, but their away form all of a sudden has taken an uptick.
Yeah, they play fantastically at Spurs.
Yeah, and their last 6, I mean, I think they've got 4 wins out of the last 6 in the Premier League. So they've got 12 points, whilst I think we've got 2 wins, 2 draws. So we're at 8 points out of the possible for maximum for the 6 games, which would be 18. So, our form has seen an uptick. Their form has definitely seen a huge uptick. And all of a sudden, Bournemouth look like they're going to be, staying up. And I think for us, there's enough of a gap now. A draw takes us to 32 points. I don't think this year will be exactly, but I don't also think that this year the 40 points will be the magic number for a lot of those teams.
It's
34. Yeah. I think 34 is the magic number, and I think we draw against Bournemouth, perhaps even draw against Palace or along those lines. Then again, don't back the early kickoff, and we've got the early kickoff on the Palace game. So hopefully Palace are favourites and we get a secret win. But I think in May, looking at the teams we've got, I mean, we end with Leeds United at home, and then Leicester away, and I think there are points up for grabs. I think we're probably going to finish on 36 to 38 points. I don't think we necessarily have to worry about Bournemouth as much as we would have 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, sorry, you just stopped talking right.
No, you're all good.
I'm really sorry there, chat. No, I'm really sorry. I was getting a little bit stressed out there thinking about the weekend. No, but listen, this is the thing. These, points that we pick up at the weekend and the result against Fulham, this means that we can look at these European fixtures differently. And I think this is why, yes, if we can get it done in 90 minutes, that would be absolutely fantastic. If we can somehow, blow the tie wide open within the first half and look to maybe sub a few of our better players in the second half, that would be fantastic. But thankfully that recent form of ours in the Premier League means that we can actually look at these games a little bit differently now and not think which one are we putting all of our eggs into which basket. If we were to progress through this round, all of a sudden if we get a point or we beat Bournemouth at the weekend, when the semi-final comes around, we can look at that thinking, well, we don't need to worry about the Premier League so much this weekend because we've done better in our results. So I think this is the perfect time we could have had this second leg, especially with how our last 2-3 performances have gone. We're still in the tie, and I think everybody kind of feels a little bit more positive, especially after the fight that we showed at the weekend, which was obviously incredibly important. But if you have enjoyed the preview, don't forget to drop a like on the video, subscribe, turn the notification bell on. I'm trying to think of all the things I used to say on my YouTube videos. Turn the notification bell on. Become a member as well of the channel. Exclusive content and stuff like that doesn't go live. I know James is working hard on trying to do some new things for the members and stuff. So obviously to help support the channel, help support James and the rest of the guys and stuff would be greatly appreciated too. But Clive, thank you very much for joining me. Any final words from yourself? Any final words from yourself?
I think just come on your hands, isn't it? Really, I think this will get behind the team tomorrow night, and let's get ourselves into another European semi-final 2 years running.
And what a beautiful way to end it! Another European semi-final on the horizon for West Ham, if we can, in fact, do the business tomorrow night against Gent. Hopefully, James, when he joins you for the afterthought, it will be for a positive result, and we will be through to that next round. But for myself and Clive, have a good evening. We'll see you all later. Bye-bye.
There it is. I've never found a love like this.